things can happen in this lesson. You're going to notice the first thing first, the objective and keywords. Most of these are for you as learning coach, is to understand and what your child should be acknowledging. Again, keywords, posing that question as events. What is an event? If I were to say to you and plug the word events into the context of a sentence, I went to a birthday event. What does the word event mean? That's something that your child needs to understand. The more you talk to them and more you expand your vocabulary, the more of an in-depth understanding and more expansive vocabulary your child is going to have. So how you speak is how they're going to speak. If you want them to have an elevated vocabulary, you need to have the same kind of vocabulary. Okay, so you'll notice in this right now, in this lesson, we have 15 slides. I am going to write this down and we're going to see how many slides we can actually cut out for you, because again, language arts live lesson or language lessons should only take about 30 minutes to tops an hour. So we have 15 slides. In this instance, you can get rid of the first slide because this first slide is only for the learning coach. Okay, use story words to describe events. Ultimately, read the story with your learning coach. So again, a lot of this, depending on Billy and where your child's phonics are at, this is pretty higher level. So if your child needs help, then you can help them. Again, it's going through and reading the story with them, allowing them to pick out the words that they already know. Allow them to be successful. If they're struggling through words like Billy or dark, AR is a hard phoneme to learn. Again, it's a little bit later on in the actual learning curriculum. But keep in mind, as you're going through, if your child is struggling, it is fine. This is something they need to be working on, and it's okay to struggle in that time. Help them understand, like the word night, IGHT is a hard phoneme for them to grasp. So if they need help, you can help them. You as a learning coach will ask these questions. You'll notice that, again, the answers they're giving are very simple. I would like you to practice how to answer them in complete sentences. For instance, when did Grandma take Billy to the park? Okay. When did Grandma take Billy to the park? Grandma took Billy to the park at night. And ultimately, if you're looking at this, we'll ask them follow-up questions. You can do one question, and then after they answer, well, how do you know that? What tells you that they took them to the park, that Grandma took Billy to the park at night? How do you know? Again, more expansive their vocabulary. And the more they can understand and comprehend, for instance, they could say, well, there's fireflies. Fireflies, if they have knowledge of fireflies, they only come out at night, right? Because you won't be able to see them. So again, it's having those discussions and going through that. So again, you don't necessarily need the student uses words from the stories to tell what happens. You don't need to watch the video. So there's instances where if you are a learning coach are doing these stories with your child and working it with your child and talking it out, they do not need the video, which will save you about 2 minutes in this instance. They do not need to watch the video in this instance. Okay, so we'll cut it down a little bit. Again, reading the story with your learning coach, you're going to use words from the story to tell what happened. So again, you're going to comprehend. You're comprehending with your child. You're listening to what they have to say. You want them to use as much expansive vocabulary as possible. So here's the new story. So again, as you're going through it, you're going to talk it out with your child. Some example questions. These are not really questions. You can sit back and say, for instance, Dad took Alex to the new park. Alex was surprised. There were no trees. There was no grass. There were walls. It was a rock climbing park. Said Dad, I'll show you how to climb. Okay. So follow-up questions could be, do you know what rock climbing is? There may be some kids that do not know what rock climbing is. Good. Side note is to be able to pull up your phone and show them what rock climbing is, just to give them context and to expand their vocabulary and to expand their understanding of what these kind of things are. The rest of the questions do not need to be answered. So cut the rest of those out. You do not need them. So again, 1, you have part of 2 and 3, you do not need to finish. Again, 5-finger test, don't worry about it. You're going to read Max and Kate. So again, Max and Kate is the story. You're going to forget the rest of them. Max and Kate are here. So my suggestion is that you can print these out on a Saturday or Sunday and have them already prepped and ready in a binder if you want to do it that way. But again, you do not need all of these. A story, Max and Kate, and then B story are all the same. So again, it comes back to they're all, it's all the same stuff. Your child should be able to read this one with you. If they're struggling through, just read it with them and help them through the words that they need to work on. The follow-up questions are, I would suggest, for instance, if we go to Max and Kate and say I'm reading with your child, right? Max and Kate are visiting a pottery studio with Kate's mommy. Okay. What do you see that's going on here? What are they making? What do you notice about this picture? These are the kind of questions you can ask your child as you're going through the story. Okay. So as we go through, we notice, what do we notice? What do you see here? What might be happening? What moved? Oh, we have to go back to the first side. Let's go back to the first one. Look where all the little elephant and the dragon, dinosaur, and ant, look where they ended up. They moved. Look at them. They're being silly. What do you see in this? What do you notice? Again, it's asking those questions as you're going along. Okay, we're going to keep going. Uh-oh, Max's pot is spinning out of control. Oh my goodness. What would you do if your pot was spinning out of control? Again, it's every page you're asking follow-up questions. You're talking to your child about what's happening in the story. You're reiterating comprehension. You're noticing specific things about the story. You know, in this instance, well, look, I love that look how beautiful Kate's artwork is. And look how original Max is. I mean, it's a little topsy-turvy. They wouldn't have the vocabulary if you don't speak to them. So again, it's having these conversations, it's having these in-depth conversations as you're going along. Again, here you go. The next day, Max and Kate's pots are hard, but Max's pot looks a little funny. And then you can talk and have that discussion about how Matt's little pot looks a little funny. Have them talk about that. Let them be silly. Let them be kids. You know, talk to them. Maybe they have experience with pottery. Maybe you've taken them to, what are they called? Like, forget what they're called. They're like little pot shops where you go and you do ceramic things. And you can make ceramic items. Anyways, so as you go along, you don't need to worry about these questions. You can look at the questions beforehand and incorporate them as you're reading them. But then other than that, you can move on. Okay, so here is your new objective and keywords. Again, in this section, you will tell why you like the story. Again, most of this, if it goes on to Max and Kate, you've already done this. Reason, why do you think something's true? This is something, again, expanding vocabulary. Okay, so you've read What's Wrong with Mrs. Wolf, and you've read Max and Kate too. You're going to talk about why you like the stories. You can recall the stories with your child. You're going to go into, again, you don't need to do all of this. It's just giving you examples as a learning coach. So that cuts out page 6. So again, they have, if you need to go back in and reread What's Wrong with Mrs. Wolf and Kate and Max, then you can. You don't have to. Again, skip the 5-finger test, doesn't really help. Again, these are also stories we've already read, so you can cut out page 7. Again, all you're doing is you're going in and you're talking about What's Wrong with Mrs. Wolf and Max and Kate. You've already had these discussions. If you feel like your child has already understood these concepts and have understood the story process, then just move on. Again, practice again. These are the exact same things, exact same story. You don't need to do any of this. So you're going to cut out page 8. In this one, you're going to be blending words with O. In this instance, what I would suggest you do is get note cards. And you can build these words. So you can get note cards like this, put top, pop, hop, and cop. And then you're going to suggest, you're going to showcase which is the first sound of that word, right? So as I go through, if I am, where's my pen? Hang on really quickly. Let me share my screen. Hang on. Let me pause my recording really fast. Pause. Oh, no. So I want to pause. Okay, so sounding and blending words with Chart O. So if you have these, one of the things you can do is you can either write them out already, or you can put them on note cards, or you can kind of play this in a different way. So for instance, if you're going to write them out, my suggestion was get a highlighter and highlight the vowel. It just makes notice of that vowel. If you have my ABC cards, you can also build these words with the ABC cards like we do in class. So you would ask things like, the word is top. My hand went to the top of my head. Top. What sound do you hear first in top? What letter makes the sound T? So they would find the first sound in top. Then they would find the second sound. What is the second sound in top? T, ah, p. And then they would look for the third sound in top. Again, it's doing the same thing over and over. It's giving them the ability to hear the first, second, and third sound, and they're noticing those kind of things while they're going through their lessons. Again, these can go into note cards, and you can have them, you can play a game with them while they have you would have specific letter cards that you would pull out, and do this on your own at home as a game. So again, cop, ah. What is the third sound in cop? Ah, cop. And they would pull out the P, right? So they need to make that determination. They have to listen, and then they have to put it out. So you can do it in this manner. Let me pause my screen really quick. Okay, so these ones can be used for later on. So again, keep in mind the words like top, you're going to highlight the vowel in a different color than you are the consonants. And then you can move on from there. You don't need to go through all these questions. Again, you don't need to go through all these questions. And so that cuts out. You're just going to pull out these 4 words and put them into like note cards or index cards or something like that. Or you can write them out on lined paper and have them go through them with building the word or figuring out what's the first sound, what's the second sound, what's the third sound, that kind of thing. And then you would blend them to have them blend together. Again, this is also the same idea as what we were doing before. If you have odd, you can add a consonant and change the sound of it. Again, if your child is coming to my Thursday live lesson where we're building words, they can skip this. But again, if they're not, then you want to make sure that they go through this. We are doing something very similar, but you can do this on a daily basis with them. It's just changing it out and changing the first letter of the given word that they have going on. Again, this is the exact same thing. You're writing out and you're saying the word og with D, with F, with L, and it's doing the same thing across the board. So if you have those letter cards, then you would take out the letter cards and you would have OG already figured out, and then have them pick out the D, have them pick out the F, and then have them change it out with the L so they can sound them out. So again, they're blending them together. This, again,